At my son's engagement, he raised a glass and said, "Thank you, Mark, for being the real dad I never had. My biological father only taught me how to disappear." Everyone laughed. So I smiled, drained his $32,000 wedding fund, canceled his apartment lease, and disappeared, just like he said I would. I'm 48, divorced, father to a son I thought I knew. This story starts at my son Aiden's engagement dinner, but the real beginning is nearly 2 decades back. Aiden's mother, Laura, and I were married for 10 years. Our divorce wasn't scandalous, just the slow fade of two people growing in different directions. Aiden was 9 when we split. The court gave us joint custody, and I moved about an hour away. Still, I showed up every weekend. No matter the weather, traffic, or what was going on in my life, I drove the round trip every Friday evening and brought him back Sunday night. I paid every child support check on time. More than that, I covered the extras: baseball leagues, summer camps, SAT tutors, birthday parties. When he turned 12, I surprised him with a cherry red guitar because he'd once mentioned loving classic rock. That guitar stayed on a stand in every room he lived in through high school. I wasn't perfect, but I was there. I was consistent. I was his dad. When Laura remarried, Aiden was 15. I remember the first time I met Mark. Sharply dressed, good handshake, loud laugh. He was one of those guys who could charm a room in 30 seconds. I figured if he was good to my son, I wouldn't get in the way. He didn't just marry Laura. He inserted himself deep into Aiden's life. Coached his high school baseball team. Took him on ski trips I couldn't afford. Helped him tour colleges. At first, I thought it was a good thing. The more people who loved Aiden, the better, right? But slowly, I started to feel it. Distance. Calls got shorter. Visits were skipped. "Dad, I've got a job shadow with Mark. Mark and I are prepping for interviews." I brushed it off. Told myself this was what teenagers do. They grow up, find independence, lean into new mentors. I kept showing up, even when it felt like I was just a backup. About a month ago, Aiden called to invite me to his engagement dinner. Fancy Italian place downtown. "Would love for you to come, Dad." It'd mean a lot. So I showed up. Early. Wore the same blazer from his high school graduation. Got him a vintage watch. He'd always had a thing for older, classic styles. Wrapped it carefully and slipped it in my coat pocket. I'll admit, it felt good being there. Seeing him all grown up, holding hands with a sweet girl who clearly adored him. Laura and Mark were already seated when I arrived. They nodded politely. We made small talk, the kind you have when history hangs between you and you'd rather pretend it doesn't. Dinner went smoothly. Laughter, clinking glasses, people snapping pictures. And then, toward the end, Aiden stood up. He tapped his fork gently on the edge of his glass and said, "Hey, everyone, thank you for coming. Before we wrap up, I just want to say something important." I looked up, smiling. He glanced toward Mark and continued, "I want to thank the man who showed me what it means to be a real father. Mark, my stepdad. My biological dad never taught me anything except how to leave." A few people chuckled. Some looked around awkwardly. Laura laughed too loud. I sat there for a moment. Blinked. Not angry. Not yelling. Just stunned. I slowly reached into my pocket, pulled out the wrapped watch, and handed it to him. "Congratulations," I said. "Wishing you both the best." Then I stood up, walked out, and didn't look back. I didn't sleep that night. Not out of rage. More like a quiet kind of heaviness I can't explain. I kept replaying Aiden's words in my head. The way he said "my biological dad," like I was some anonymous donor. Like I hadn't spent the better part of 2 decades quietly showing up for everything. I opened the drawer beside my bed where I kept a folder labeled Aiden. Inside was every receipt for his camps, his tutoring, his guitar lessons, even a copy of the check I'd written for his college textbooks freshman year. Not because I wanted to throw it in his face, but because I believed in being prepared, especially when co-parenting gets messy. That morning, I made coffee, sat down at my laptop, and logged into an investment account I had opened in my name 10 years earlier. It wasn't a trust or anything fancy, just something I'd quietly built for him. Every birthday or Christmas when he said he didn't need anything, I'd put money in there. It was supposed to be a wedding gift. A down payment on his future. $32,000. That's how much it had grown to. I clicked liquidate. Next, I called the landlord of the apartment Aiden and his fiancée were supposed to move into. It was a sweet little loft, big windows, great neighborhood. I was the guarantor on the lease. Aiden's credit wasn't quite strong enough yet. I told the landlord I was withdrawing. Without a guarantor, the lease would fall through. He said he understood. By lunch, the damage was done. I didn't feel vindictive. I felt detached, calm. The call started that evening. First it was Laura. She went from yelling to crying in under a minute. "You sabotaged his entire future." "No," I said. "I just removed myself from it." "He's your son, is he?" I asked. Because at that dinner, It sure didn't sound like it. There was a long pause. She hung up. I didn't hear from Aiden for 2 days. Then came a string of texts, missed calls, a voicemail that started with, "Hey, Dad," and trailed off into an awkward apology. Then finally, an email. It was long, carefully worded. He said he got caught up in the moment, that he didn't mean it to come off like that. He called it just a toast. Said Mark had helped him a lot during hard times, and he was just trying to show appreciation. But nowhere in the message did he acknowledge the years I spent driving through snowstorms to get him back by Monday morning, or the time I sat through his entire 8th grade band recital just to see him play 3 minutes of guitar, or the weekends I sacrificed so he could spend time with friends. I read the email twice. Then I replied with just one sentence. Words matter, especially when they're spoken in front of people who watch me spend half my life being a father to you. No anger, just truth. The next day, Mark called. "Hey man," he started, sounding awkward. "That toast caught me off guard too. Aiden just got carried away. I hope you know none of us meant to hurt you." I let the silence hang for a beat. "But it did," I said. "And you didn't stop it either. You just sat there and took the credit." He sighed. "Look, I wasn't trying to step on your role. You didn't need to. You just let him erase me." I hung up. A week passed. Then 2. I didn't hear from Aiden again, not directly. I saw an Instagram post from a mutual cousin, a photo of him and his fiancée smiling outside the courthouse, a tiny caption, "Mr. and Mrs. No big wedding. No apartment. No mention of me." I imagined Mark standing nearby in a suit, maybe giving another speech. Maybe this time I wasn't mentioned at all. Maybe that was better. Laura called again after the wedding. Her voice was softer this time. She didn't yell. She didn't try to guilt me. She just said, "He's hurting, you know." "I'm sure he is," I said. "Actions have consequences. So do words." She was quiet for a moment, then added, "I think he understands now, but I don't think he knows how to fix it." I told her I wasn't angry anymore, because by then, I really wasn't. You can't stay angry at someone you've already let go of. I had spent nearly 20 years shaping my life around a role I took seriously. I canceled vacations to make visitation weekends work. I picked up extra jobs when tuition came due. I sat in parking lots during his practices, worked from my laptop in my car, and drove home late with just coffee and a podcast to keep me awake. I never asked for praise. I didn't want a trophy or a viral moment. But I didn't deserve to be erased like a footnote in my own son's story. Aiden eventually sent another message. A text this time. "I get it now. I messed up. I hope you'll give me a chance to make it right." I stared at the screen for a while. My thumb hovered over the keyboard. Then I locked the phone and set it face down. Forgiveness isn't about texting back. It's about what you carry forward and what you leave behind. Since all of this happened, I've started doing something I never had time for before, sailing lessons. I've always been fascinated by sailboats. The way they move with no motor, just wind and instinct. There's something peaceful about learning how to move forward while reading the wind behind you. I haven't disowned my son. I haven't written him out of my life. But I've stepped back. For now, that's the boundary I need. If he truly wants to rebuild, he'll have to come find me. Not just with words, but with actions. That's how you earn someone back. In the meantime, I'm figuring out who I am when I'm not busy being someone else's anchor. I look back sometimes, not with regret, but with clarity. I gave everything I could. I was a good father. Maybe not the one who took him skiing or wore the flashiest suits. But I was the one who showed up. Over and over. And in the end, that's something I don't need a toast to validate.